And when I first saw Digger earlier on, I thought, what's Digger doing here? He's not in Young ATEC. And then I realised he was filming. So good to see you, Digger. And may I pay my respects to Inga as well. Good to have you here, Inga. For my sins, I also sit on the board of ATEC. I've been on the board of ATEC now for 4 years. And it's been both a pleasure and a lot of hard work in equal measure. But it's great to be involved with Young ATEC. It's something that I know the board believes in very much. It's something that is the future of our industry. So when I sit, I hear both Brooke and Meredith saying that she was also sitting out here at one point as someone in a Young ATEC. And I started my career in the tourism industry at the age of 18, if not younger. And yeah, it's amazing where you can get to. And it's programs like this that help the entire industry lift their standards and stand you apart from your colleagues that don't attend things like this. So it's great to be involved with too, with Young ATEC. First of all, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about digital marketing, which to me is a lot like shiny new things. And I've put that slide up there for a reason because I'm going to finish with it as well. And it's literally the pace of change in our industry and what we do has been so great. And I'm going to take you on a journey. So how do we know where we're going with digital marketing if we don't know where we've come from? And I love that Inga's in the room because she can disagree with some of my historical references. First of all, my company, it's called Global Gossip. We started it quite a few years ago. It's basically, we started out as an internet cafe chain, but we've evolved our business because we had to. And a big theme of my presentation is going to be disruptive technology. And we evolved our business from an internet cafe model to working inside youth hostels to actually now providing Wi-Fi to hotels and resorts. And my company, for example, here in Sydney, started out as an internet cafe company, now serves about half the national parks in America. We do the most amazing projects all around the world in countries most obscure. In fact, tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, I'm flying to Papua New Guinea for 3 days to do some work up there. So really interesting journey for us. But again, disruptive technology has driven my business, and it's also driving your business without you knowing it. We're now big on Wi-Fi and big in Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi is amazingly the thing of the future, or the thing of the now, I guess, because we're all embracing it. Wi-Fi is all around us. In fact, right now, I'd say we're being bombarded by a number of different Wi-Fi hotspots. But you go into New York or in a very big congested city, and there will be hundreds and hundreds of wireless hotspots to choose from in any street that you're on. But before we go there, let's look at digital marketing. And of course, my colleague Meredith today is going to talk in depth about social media. And there's so many different platforms that we're up with. And this is some of the things that we're grappling with. And when I say we as a population. But what I really wanted to say is that no one's an expert. And no one's an expert because the consumers are the expert, and the consumers drive the change. And you've got to understand that. Now, I'm going to take you on a journey of technology in the tourism industry, but I also want you to understand that in terms of digital marketing, the customer is the expert. And basically, this slide reminds me of you guys. You're the experts in this game, believe it or not. A lot more than someone my age and older. And before we go there, I want to talk about embracing disruption. Now, disruptive technology is a big theme of what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to, as I say, round off at the end. But embracing disruption is exactly what you should and shouldn't do. And we'll get to that in detail throughout the presentation. Let's talk about technology in tourism. 1946, American Airlines started to store an automated booking system on a thing called an electromechanical reservoir, which comprised a temporary storage of magnetic drums. American Airlines, 1946, 2 years after the end of World War II. Okay, now this is a tourism company, literally moving people around, but they stored the data on magnetic drums. And it's actually fascinating to me that following that, American Airlines again bought out Sabre, and of course Sabre is still operating today. And of course, 1953, when Sabre came about, the complexities within tourism started to come out, and tourism itself started to embrace technology. So Sabre as a global reservation system. So I'm talking technology because it actually flows. This whole theme of tourism and technology flows through. By the 1980s, 70s and 80s, CRS, which is basically computer reservation system, really simple, they started to proliferate. Then, of course, came the GDSs, the global distribution systems, which, of course, linked all these networks together. Again, no internet, but these were private networks that were run by massive organizations that need to keep track of information globally. Come the 80s, typewriters arrived with memory. Atlas was a system that I used when I first started work in 1985. It was created by the Queensland Government, Queensland Tourist and Travel Corporation. Now, I want to then talk about consumers and what consumers were doing around this time. In France, Minitel was in every home in France, pretty much every connected home. It was a tiny little computer with a black and grey screen, and you could look up people's phone numbers. You could send messages to other people instead of using the telephone. This is all pre-internet, okay? By the mid-90s, everything changed. Disruptive technology. There was something that changed everything in the mid-90s. So you go back from the 1985 Atlas era to the mid-90s, and something changed, HTML. HTML is a type of code that essentially allows information to be presented on a screen. And initially it was done for documents, but that of course enabled web pages. That's disruptive technology. So computers linking together could communicate and share images, share documents, share images in live time and real time. HTML was disruptive technology. Now to tourists, before that there was a thing called post-restant. Anyone heard of it? No. When I traveled, and when Inga traveled, sorry Inga, when we wanted to communicate with our family and they knew we were going to be in Paris or in London or even in Townsville at a certain time, but we didn't know when we were going to be there because we were traveling, we would send our letters to the post office and we'd mark on it our name, post-restant Townsville and the postcode, or post-restant Paris. And you'd go to the post restaurant in Paris and you'd say, my name is Peter Ovenden. You'd present your passport and you would be given your mail. And of course, what happened, and you'd also go to the American Express office. If you had an American Express card, you could go to the American Express travel office, who booked your travel but also held your mail for you. And this is also in the era of postcards, but that's how we kept in touch. We didn't have phones, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have the internet. What happened in 1996? Hotmail started. This is when tourism changed. People stopped sending postcards. All right, so we want to start talking about digital marketing and where digital marketing comes in. Hotmail was the precursor. There was another one, Rocketmail, that started at the same time. This was 1996. That's when I started my business because people no longer wanted to send postcards to each other. They could be anywhere. They didn't need to go to the post office to collect their post restaurant or to send send a postcard. They could email each other as long as you were connected on a computer. And we provided computers for that facility, for that service. Again, major disruptive technology. Now, in the course of my business, Google was, again, disruptive technology, the rise of search engines. People were currently able to search. Now, Google's only been around since 1998. Hotmail was 96. Google enabled things such as tourism businesses to have online brochures. Suddenly, you could have a website, and your website could list information about you. You still needed to have almost a programmer's degree to enable to program the website. You had to outsource it. Not many people could do their own websites. But you could also interact with that product via email. Still no live bookings. Okay, but you could email from an email address embedded within the website. Again, disruptive technology. What happened? Commercial transactions came up. Now, commercial transactions really changed the internet again. And again, all this flows into digital marketing. It enabled people to pay bills, do shopping, to do safe credit card processing, to enter your credit card into a website to create a sale. So can you imagine going back even 5, 10 years ago? In fact, I'll go back 10 years, back to 2003. People were still wary about putting their credit card numbers into a website. So you talk about the engagement with the consumer, booking online in live time, airlines. You know, yeah, amazing differences. So this whole, again, think of that journey we've come from American Airlines first storing their customers' data in 1946 through until around 2006, a very, very fast 50 years later, 60 years later, that you can book online, direct with the airline. Again, disruptive technology doing its work. Now, Meredith's going to talk in detail about social media and the rise of social media. But what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit more and in more detail is actually why most digital marketing campaigns fail. All right? Social media, by the way, heralded an enormous change. So instead of sending those emails, we're suddenly posting on our Facebook pages. We're blogging. I put blogs in that social media space as well in terms of the evolution of what we're talking about. But it just changed everything again. They're happy little Facebookers, yeah, doing what they do best. Oh, sorry, really important. Fastest growing demographic for Facebook is the over 50s. I'm not there yet, but just so you know, you talk about Facebook, don't discount the fact that it's multi-generational. My kids at age 10, 11, they want Facebook. My father will never use it. My father's terribly conservative. But I do know that there are people of my parents' friends that I communicate with on Facebook. So it's 4 generations. Three generations, but I'm sure there are 4 generations on Facebook. Again, that type of disruptive technology has very much changed what we're doing. Are you seeing the pattern that the consumers drive the changes, not big companies doing something? So do you think Google was a big company when it started? It wasn't. It was tiny. Do you think Facebook was a big company when it started? No, it was tiny. Do you think the guy that created HTML, Tim Berners-Lee, who first used it rather to create this World Wide Web, do you think he was a big company? He wasn't. So understand every step along the way, it's been an idea that's been born of something else, that's been adapted and has disrupted the flow, disrupted the force. I'm going to talk a little bit now about mobile, because this in itself is, again, part of disruptive technology. Mobile facts in Australia. There are more mobile phones in Australia than people. Go figure. All right, so there's more active mobile phone numbers in Australia than there are people. There you go. iPad and tablet. Who can tell me how long we've been using iPads and tablets? Can anyone guess? A couple of years. Tell me. Take a guess. Sorry, 6 years? iPad came out 3 years ago. Right? April 2010, the first iPad came out. Doesn't it feel like 6 years? But it's, again, this disruptive technology. And you want to talk about who the experts are when it came to the iPad? It wasn't Apple. It was the consumer. It's you. I'd like to say it's us, but it's you. It's you, the consumer. You're the hero here. You are the ones that drive the proliferation of apps. You're the ones that make an app popular or not. You telling each other about an app that you use or communicating are one of the things that makes those things work. It's actually still word of mouse or word of mouth. Disruptive technology, yet again. So this is actually quite interesting. Who actually has an iPhone? About 6% US market share. So there's 307 million in the US, but the number of iPhones in the US is actually quite low. In Europe, it's about 4% of market share. So you sort of talk about this one company that seems so dominant in the urban cities that we live in and in what we come across as technology, but they're in the scheme of things in the world, they're minor. So all around under 4% global share. I mean, that number could have corrected since then, but you'll get the picture. The thing about mobile technology is it actually is connecting everyone all the time. And of course, right now, tablets and mobile phones have overtaken PCs and laptops in sale terms. So you need to understand the medium and the disruptive technology that's changing the consumer before you even look at a digital marketing strategy. So we'll get to that as we go. And of course, we come back from 1984 to where we are. This was 2003. And of course, you look at the computing power. Has anyone seen the ad for the new Samsung Galaxy where the woman puts it in the sink? Isn't that amazing? Just incredible disruptive technology. Music, etc., everything that we're doing on these devices. And again, in hotels, it's about, in hotels, people are now bringing their own devices and their own content. So before you went to a hotel because you could see the latest movies, now that doesn't occur anymore. People have their own content. So how do you actually get in touch with those types of people? But not on those devices. I mean, this is just giving you an idea of exactly what's happening around the world. So your message, your digital message, your message. And I want to specifically now focus on digital messaging. And this sort of comes to the crux of everything that's right and everything that's wrong with experts in digital marketing. The mobile disruptive technology, it's the consumer again that's going to drive it. Get used to it. Okay, this is exactly how it's going to work, and those cycles are going to get shorter and shorter. I mean, a fax machine was in our office. How long did you use a fax machine for, Inga? Long time. Okay. We get the fact that technology drives a lot of this, but I really want you guys to realize that the experts in the room on technology are you. It's not me, it's not Meredith, and it's certainly not an advertising agency that will tell you everything that you need to do. So what I'd like to talk to you about is this is actually how to genuinely use digital marketing. And these are sort of my own thoughts, so by all means quote me. But what I'm going to do now is sort of go, okay, Are you really surprised by this disruptive technology? You're not. You're just seeing it presented to you in a different way. Why, when everyone is going digital, are so many strategies failing? And let's face it, a lot of strategies in digital cost a lot of money and don't work. Why are there mountains of digital waste? The amount of content you create that's immediately out of date. And I think there's three main reasons for this failure. One, shiny new things. A new piece of technology that comes out, a new Galaxy tablet, a new iPad, a new phone, a new app, okay? Missing the point. This is a really important one. And three, bad strategies. So I'm going to go into these in detail, but shiny new things, missing the point, and bad strategy are why things are failing. These reasons are all interrelated too, by the way. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to focus on shiny new things before outlining what I believe you need to avoid in their good. Now, the digital landscape is already really fragmented. And remember that slide I had up with all the different brands that were sitting up there and all those different logos? It's going to get worse before it gets better. And for every Pinterest, for every Instagram or Juxtapost or Woolmark, coming soon, expect serious hype around connected TV, internet TV, or the Internet of Things. These are the new slogans that are being bandied around. And what it is marketing people, generally speaking, love to just repackage something up and sell it to you in another year's time as something else. And it's the new jingoism, if you could call it, the shiny thing. But the fragmentation of all of those different companies, so are you on Instagram? Are you on Pinterest? Are you on Juxtapost? And the rapid rate of change has led to a constant race to keep up. How do you keep up? How do you keep up? How do I keep up? Okay, there's constant race, right? Brands feel, so this is generally companies feel, they simply must be on the latest social platform, exploiting the latest augmented reality technologies. They must quite simply be at the forefront of the digital revolution. Now, this is not a new phenomenon, okay? And a good number of brands and a good number of companies, I remember, dived into Second Life. Does anyone remember Second Life? At considerable cost. Did it help them? Marketing agencies, digital strategists, if you will, promised us as companies that Second Life was where you needed to be. It was the future and you simply had to have a presence. Is anyone talking about Second Life now? No. I hope no one here was into it because I sort of bagged it out a bit there. The point here is that while you're racing to keep up, but whom are you trying to really keep up with? Now, take social media, and I know Meredith's going to talk about this in detail. In fact, we had a chance to compare our notes before the presentation to ensure that in fact, I know we're on the same wavelength when it comes to social media. But Gartner, which is an agency for research, recently estimated that 50% of organizations, of companies, are wasting their money on social media, which is hardly surprising considering everything that I've been talking about. When you consider that about 61% of UK consumers do not want to engage with brands through social media. Now, that's the English mindset. Now, remember I talked about the get to know your audience, get to know your customer. That's incredibly important. We'll talk about that in a moment. Of the UK consumers that do want to engage, another 61% of them are driven to engage by an offer or promotion. In other words, discounting. Okay? So it's hardly the nirvana promised a couple of years ago. So just realize that dive into Second Life, that dive into Facebook, is it because you're discounting something? You know, anyone can give something away. Just remember that. In digital marketing terms and in marketing terms, any idiot can give something away. It's getting people to pay the right price, the right value proposition for your product that makes all the difference. At the same time, many branded mobile applications now, so you've gone and built your app, are lucky to get 1,000 downloads, and yet we see more and more of them every day. And an app, to me, is only as useful as the amount of use that someone uses it for. Now, there's only a very few apps that I genuinely use every day, and to be perfectly honest, I think my devices, in terms of the iPad and iPhone, my kids use them more for games than I do as a real tool, and the apps within them. Admittedly, I think banking's a bit easier, in fact, a lot easier. I think the weather's easy. Maybe if you're doing Facebook or social media, it's easy. But other than that, that long tail of apps is quite useless. Sorry, there's one more. Uber. I'm actually really enjoying Uber. I don't know if anyone's got Uber, but I'm loving Uber at the moment. Uber's a taxi. It's a taxi app. Well, it's taxi and high cars. Madness, isn't it? Spending all this money on an app, but no one's actually doing it. Is there a cure? Well, yes, there is, and it's not very sexy, and it leads onto this slide. And it requires hard work. And you have to be rigorous about this. And it's ongoing. But then again, it always has been. It's just that we've lost touch with this. There are 4 steps that you need to take to avoid the lure of shiny new things. Get close to your audience, really close. Now, the forward-thinking companies are utilizing new ways of getting to know their audience, and technology can allow you to do this. And stuff like ethnography, which is basically understanding the ethnic understanding of your organization, of your customers, private brand communities, and using them alongside more traditional techniques. Isn't it interesting that I talk traditional and digital in the same breath? Because you can't beat a face-to-face meeting and a face-to-face engagement. It sounds like a bit of a pain, but actually data analysis and the analysis of your customer data is so much cleaner and easier. It's no longer just a nice to have. You've got to do it. You've got the data, and believe it or not, programs like Excel, you can do so much with. You really can. So the first thing I'm going to recommend that you do in digital marketing is get close to your audience. Understand who your customers are. Really understand them. Don't go looking outside first. Look inside your business. All right? And the next slide sort of goes to that as well. So the next slide to me is map key customer journeys. Understand where and at what point in the life cycle your customers are and prospects are likely to touch your company. To do this properly requires both effort and expense. All right? And there's an expression, and again, I hate marketing speak. It kind of sends a little shiver down my spine. But touch point modeling. All right? What points are you touching your customer? Is it your website? Is it your brochure? Is it your tour coach driver? Is it your flight attendant on the plane? Is it your hotel staff at the front desk? Is it the reservations people that take the call? Where are those touch points? And how can you reach out to your customer and make a difference at every single one of those touch points in a world where it's increasingly more difficult to touch your customer? Work out those touch points. It's vital to avoid this. Actually, this is a classic. I was doing a bit of research for this. It's vital to avoid fingers crossed marketing models. We're going to do something and we hope it works. Whereby you're really, by doing the research and understanding the customer, you actually know and you're building upon it. So those 2 points are interrelated. That first one, get close to your audience, really close, understand your customers, but also understand when you're touching your customers. Okay? Oh, yes, next page. Map your digital ecosystem. All right, now this is the first time I've really come back to digital marketing. What I want you to do here is understand, and this is actually, sorry, I'll go back. When I ask tourism marketers what their digital ecosystem is, very few can answer the simple question. And by digital ecosystem, I mean understanding the company's key platforms, channels, and the relationships between them. In isolation, social media, not related to your website, not related to the underlying activities of the business, is a failure. There's no point in doing them in isolation. And this is based primarily on 2 things: your marketing and your objective and your marketing and sale objectives, and your deep audience insight. When you bring them together and you understand those points, you suddenly have a strategy. And this may seem really daunting. It may seem like, I use the expression in my office at the moment, how do you eat an elephant? And that is tiny bites at a time. And you start at one end until you've finished eating it. So this may seem like an enormous prospect at the moment. How do you understand all this stuff? Well, it's pretty simple. Map out your digital ecosystem. Understand where you're touching your audience. And understand what your audience are and who they are and what they're doing and where they're going. Now, this ecosystem, okay, this digital ecosystem will be different for different segments within your organization. And it will also constantly shift, it will evolve. But you must know where you should be investing and where you can afford to go for a light touch, okay, investing your time and your money, where you go for light touch, or where to ignore it altogether. Is Facebook important to you, yes or no? The alternative is that companies will spend a lot of money trying to keep up, and it's a race to keep up. This last one I think is also quite good. I try and put in the crosshairs digital marketers, or not marketers, marketers in general. Move away from big ideas, okay? And it always seems that, and I think our society at the moment is waiting for the next big thing. And it's actually not that important. Everything takes work. I love the fact that Tourism New Zealand, for example, hasn't really changed their campaign in years. 100% pure, 100% New Zealand. It's so simple and it works. Strategy isn't very sexy, by the way. It really isn't. It's thought, it's detail, it's data. And it's not as sexy as big splashy concepts or big cool sounding ideas and you know, that big splash that you make because you've got lots of money behind it. The number one reason I believe digital strategies fail is because actually underpinning them, there is no strategy. They haven't done the hard yards in advance. They don't know who their customer is, number one. They're not close to their customer. They don't know where they're touching their customer, number two. And of course, as I said earlier, they don't even have an understanding of how all of that relates back to their marketing and pure marketing, product, place, promotion, price. Rather, and this is actually quite a classic one, there is a cool or big idea that a company might do or buy into, and because it sounds right, followed by a number of tactical implementations which appear to support the central idea or theme. And this is really related, this is closely linked to the third reason why digital strategies fail. Remember I said at the very start, and that's bad strategy. So while I don't want to talk at length about it, it's worth taking a minute to consider whether your companies and your own understandings of those strategies actually have a digital strategy underpinning them at all. And chances are they probably don't. But don't worry, it's not too late. Most of your competition doesn't either have a full strategy. I really mean that. So I'm pretty damning on it, but I want you to understand there's some very basic principles that you need to get back to. And by not worrying about it, I think it is key to come back to those 4 points. And I'm going to go back to them. I should have summarized them, but I haven't. Get close to your audience, really close. Map key customer journeys, okay? What is the life cycle of your brand, your company's touch points? Avoid that fingers crossed, I hope it works type marketing initiatives. Map out your digital ecosystem, social media, web, blogs, with your traditional. How does it all interact? Is there a central theme underpinning it? What do you ignore? And to be perfectly honest, I'm a great case in point. I think ever since Jesse, who used to work for us, Jesse, a TA that Meredith will talk about, ever since he left, our Facebook marketing has gone downhill like that. At what cost to our business? Almost nothing. It's a touch point for our customers, but as long as we just light touch our Facebook, it continues just to tick over, and it's not something that consumes us. It is just another way. It's almost, we treat it almost, I'll tell you how we treat it in our business. We treat Facebook as like the main telephone number coming in, meaning it's another way that our consumers can touch base with us. We don't ignore it, but what we do is we just have it and we manage it. We don't let it lead everything, because to be perfectly honest, I think out of all of the sales that we might make, Facebook would generate 0.001% of them. However, it is a brand. It is almost, and I'll let Meredith talk more about her views of Facebook and social media and how it fits into business. And again, move away from the big idea. I mean, big splashy ideas are great, and you might need a rallying point, but in reality, the consumer, you know, I think we as customers are a lot smarter than the companies think we are. We're a lot smarter than companies think we are. And I think the Tourism New Zealand idea is just one of, I'm touching the tip of the iceberg there. I want you to know that you guys are the experts when it comes to digital marketing. What works with you will work with your customers. So what level of contact you have with digital will also work with your customers. So if you're afraid of it, just embrace it, all right? Because there's one way, if you have no idea about what I've been talking about, just understand to map that ecosystem. Understand in your own organization what digital marketing activities you're currently doing and how they interact back into itself. Look, that's what I wanted to touch on today. I didn't want to go too ethereal, and I just wanted to tell you the bare facts, that there's no experts out there. The experts are the consumers. That disruptive technology is going to change what a consumer does and how a consumer reacts. It may be Google and Facebook today, but just remember, before Google it was Look Smart or Look Sharp or whoever it was, Excite, it was Yahoo, it was all these other search engines. So just understand Google's done a great job to get where it is, and search engine optimization and all of those other activities that underpin it. What I tell you today will be out of date tomorrow because they will change and disruptive technology will change. I will say though, keep an eye out on mobile devices. I think the consumer is absolutely driving to mobile, like in the same way we are. So we check everything on our handheld devices these days. But yeah, embrace the fear of it, jump on it, and I'm not quite sure if there's Q&A at the end, Brooke, is there? Yes, I can't see your name.
Rose.
Hello, Rose.
Hi, just a general question, if you have an opinion or if you've heard about the way that Google and Gmail have now reformatted Gmail to have a separate sponsors folder.
Yep.
So basically they stream through all of the mail and anything that they consider as spam or advertising goes into a completely separate folder and stays out of consumers' inboxes.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Oh. I love the fact that some Russian guys were arrested last week as the source of a third of the world's spam email. I mean, I can't wait to have a penis enlargement or a breast reduction or enlargement or to buy artificial drugs online. So any effort to filter that out is one thing is good because I think spam actually destroyed email for the most part. That's number one. These are my opinions. In relation to scanning through your emails, and actually, I love the fact that in theory, Facebook, there was talk of them at one stage of superimposing your face onto someone else's face in advertisements that are served up to you. The concept of going through anyone's email is a great breach of privacy, but unfortunately, as consumers, we don't stand up to that terms and conditions. Do you accept the terms and conditions, yes or no? Yes, we do. So while we as a collective consumer continues to tick yes on the I accept the terms and conditions, they're going to do whatever they want to provide us with a service. So if you go back to, say, an Outlook type environment where you have a mail server where you own that server and you have the mail stored there versus a Gmail type server, which is, again, the Google app. I mean, we use Google Apps at work for our own mail. And I get very frustrated by the filtering that goes on because important emails suddenly end up in my spam box, as you would well know. But also purely from a targeting a client point of view and your own databases, if people have opted in, then they've opted in. They want to hear from you for a reason. But what happens, of course, is that that's out of our control as both companies and as consumers because we've abrogated responsibility to a much larger organisation. So while we're still and always ticking that, yes, I agree, I mean, have you ever read the terms and conditions on one of those things? I don't think so. I haven't.
Yeah, just want to get on with it.
Yeah, this is exactly right. And you don't realise that that's exactly what's happening. So there's not much we can do about it. However, what will happen is digital marketers will become more clever about beating the filters, and then the filters will change again. It's like the algorithm for search engine optimization. It changes all the time. And the reason being that Google want to stay ahead because Google makes their money from advertising. Yeah, does that help, Rose? Do you know what, I guess what I'm trying to do is empower you to stand up and not accept the terms and conditions. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in. We are a very compliant consumer. Very few people are actually standing up and saying, no, that's not good enough. And if you do, you're sort of branded a bit of a loony. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Inga, sorry.
Quick question. I was fascinated with your stats about the UK.
Oh, penetration of Apple iPhones.
Where do people access that information? How did you get? Do you have to pay for it? Is there something?
You can research. There's research. How would I say? I looked up a research document, and I should have credited it in my. Sorry, I should have credited it in my presentation as well. I Google it.
Did you?
Yeah. So you just literally Google mobile phone penetration in the UK, and you can come up with the result. I hasten to add, I use Google all the time. If I'm doing research on a competitor, if I'm doing research on a product, if I had a very challenging situation today, I needed to get Wi-Fi onto a boat moored a kilometre offshore that's permanently moored there. It's my time. Am I okay? Am I okay, Brooke, for time? wind it up? Yeah, okay. Anyway, I could not find the answers I needed on Google. So I actually had to go to an engineer in that area. I had to actually call someone, which actually for me is, I'm pretty good at Googling. And as consumers, this is really important. As consumers, we filter out all those ads. I watch my kids, they filter it all out. So you want to talk about digital marketing? You're already there. You're already actually, you talk about digital campaigns that fail, people are already filtering out that type of technology, no matter what you do. And that's why the Google algorithms change for search and things. Anyway, I might hand over to Meredith, or Brooke.